This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Who is it? The work that was being done this morning in Grapevine, Texas in the college football playoff selection committee room, 13 members to make the choice. They were in one drive in Indianapolis last night away from just having big cigars and big steaks and making it easy, but Wisconsin couldn't get the win. So these 13 people now have a very difficult decision to make. Interesting that 3 of these will have to recuse themselves from the top of the voting. Frank Beamer's son, Shane, is a coach on the Georgia staff. Gene Smith is the athletic director at Ohio State, and his name just above there is Dan Radakovich, who is the athletic director at Clemson. All of them cannot vote on their teams or the ones that they're connected to. This has become a tradition like running down the hill at Clemson. On Selection Day, have a pizza party for those loyal fans. Dabo Swinney started it the first year the Tigers made the playoff, and the Tigers are going to go in for the 3rd consecutive year in hopes of winning their 2nd straight national championship. We have reporters all over the place. Here's how you break them up. Top row, all set. They know they're in. The question is where they're seated, who gets to wear the home jerseys. Bottom row, there's some angst there. Some anticipation, some anxiety in L.A., Columbus, and Tuscaloosa. We will hear from all of those reporters coming up. Selection Day for the college football playoff. Good to have you with us. Reese Davis, Jesse Palmer, Joey Galloway, Booger McFarland, and Kirk Herbstreit. This is the 4th year that we've gathered with you on Sunday to tell you who the 4 teams are that are in. But this, we've had some squabbles. There have been dust-ups. This one, though, this one is going to be the most contentious decision of the playoff era, I believe.
Well, I think it's the first time. In the first year when we had TCU and Baylor debate for 4 or 5 weeks, and at the end Ohio State leapfrogged, and that got a little bit messy. But this is the first time I think we can honestly say that 4 committee had to sit there. And we, just so you know, when we get together in August, we have an ESPN seminar. Part of that seminar is that Bill Hancock and the crew, they come into Connecticut and they sit down with us and we ask them a lot of tough questions and we try to learn this system. And a big part of that is, guys, is it about the most deserving teams or is it about the best teams? And it's a debate that kind of goes around the room, and I don't know if there's ever any clarity. I can't imagine how that's gone last night, deep into the night, and then this morning.
Well, and how do you do it? You know, we got rid of the BCS because we did not want a formula. We didn't want numbers and equations and computers. And so we came up with this 13-person committee. We put coaches on it, the smartest minds in the world, and we say, go in a room and figure out the 4 best teams in the country. Well, now this year, guess what? They have to do it. And it is amazing how everyone out there is coming up with these different formulas. Hey, strength of schedule, strength of record, trying to put that in the room. We don't want that in the room. We want this 13-person committee to figure out who the 4 best teams in the country. And this is one year they're going to have to do their work.
Yeah, you mentioned we had some dust-ups and some squabbles, and occasionally I'm in those dust-ups and
a lot of the time.
Some of the time I'm involved. And so in this year, and we have a debate, and we all know what that debate is, whether it's going to be Ohio State or Alabama getting into that 4th spot. We've eliminated the idea of a name brand getting in over a TCU, which happened in the first year. And so in this season, whoever they pick between Alabama or Ohio State, I don't know that there's a big squabble. It's that close. It's that narrow that whichever team they pick, why are you looking at me like that, Reese? I'm just saying whatever team they pick in this situation, you won't get a dust-up or a squabble out of me.
Maybe not out of you.
Okay.
The masses.
I'm not in.
I think we have to...
Yeah, out here on the West Coast, 9 o'clock, it's beer 30.
The college football playoff, and I think it's so much fun for us and sometimes very frustrating and challenging for us is trying to predict what the committee is going to do, because every year there are different scenarios. Every year is fluid. There's different things that they're trying to compare. One thing's for sure, though, we've seen things unprecedented happen almost every year. And last year we saw it with Ohio State. Didn't even win their own division, yet got in the playoff. And this year there's a very real possibility that Ohio State could be the first 2-loss team to make it in, and also the first team to suffer a terrible loss against Iowa to 31 points. A good chance maybe something unprecedented happens again this year. It'll be fun to watch.
Cautiously optimistic. Players will tell you if the committee just gives them a chance, they will show the world that they belong. Reese?
Marty, we will find out in a bit. A reminder, if you're joining us, we don't have the rankings yet. When we do, we'll build them in the graphic. We'll reveal them. We will see them when you do. Here are the pros and cons for each of the three primary contenders for that one presumed available spot in the college football playoff. Alabama's the strongest FBS team according to the FPI, but they don't have a lot of big wins on their resume. Ohio State has some big wins, but they have huge losses. There's 2 by 15, one's by 31 in Kinnick Stadium. And then USC has sort of the worst of both worlds. They have a terrible loss, at least in terms of the margin, to Notre Dame, and they don't have great wins. So they almost have the worst parts of Alabama and Ohio State's resume. The thing that strikes me about this is that the arguments against putting all of these teams in far more compelling than the arguments for them. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. And some of us have said it. I think you can kind of go either way here. I don't think there's one necessarily clear-cut winner between Ohio State and Alabama. In my opinion, I think Ohio State's going to be the team that gets in the top 4. I think resume is going to win the day. I think their wins against Wisconsin, Penn State, and Michigan State, in comparison to what Alabama's done from a resume standpoint, their best win being LSU, and losses by Fresno State losing this weekend, also Auburn losing, I think that hurts their resume. I'm also not convinced that Alabama is one of the top 4 teams in the country. And I'm not convinced the committee believes so either. I think it was really telling last week when they dropped Alabama from
little glitch there.
Auburn,
lag time.
But the injuries they've had on defense, and really in the month of November, I'm not convinced, looking at Alabama, they're one of the 4 best teams.
I hear what you're saying, but if we're to a point to where Fresno State beats Boise State one week at home and then loses to them on the road, and that doesn't matter, I hope that's not a big part of the evaluation.
I mean, I truly hope it's not. And we're trying to figure out a way to differentiate between these two teams. Let's start with the most simple factor that people at home can get along with. One team has 1 loss in a Power 5 conference, and the other team has 2 losses. And everybody brings up Mercer. Well, if you look at Ohio State's schedule, what about UNLV? Mercer's had a better record the last 3 years in their schedule than UNLV has. So if we want to throw things out, we can all make arguments to fit our own points. I just think when you look at Alabama, top to bottom, consistency, start to finish, offense, defense, special teams, you've been able to count on them more throughout the season. Yeah, everybody's going to struggle. Have we always been able to count on Ohio State? What have we been saying all year long? Man, if J.T. Barrett just gets it, if he just gets it, we've been waiting and waiting. The consistency part for me is while I would lean towards Alabama. I just think college football is made that every single Saturday matters. If we put Ohio State in number 4, you're basically telling America, every Saturday it doesn't matter. Every Saturday doesn't matter in the most tradition-rich, passionate sport that we have, college football. I don't think that's a precedent we want to see.
Well, can I just real quick here, because I just want to say we just got the rankings. They're starting to build them right now. That's going to take a few minutes. Jump in here, and then we're going to let Chris Fowler have a speech.
If you make it as simple as that, and you say wins and losses, then Wisconsin has the same argument that Alabama has. They have the 1 loss. The last time we saw Alabama, they lost. The last time we saw Wisconsin, they lost. Resume, not real strong before that. Wisconsin has 2 ranked wins in the Iowa-Michigan teams. And so I believe when we start having to split hairs, that's where we are. And so when we start saying, hey, Fresno State or Mississippi State's quarterback, that's the position we're put in simply because these 2 teams are so closely matched. Believe me, I don't like splitting hairs, but in this situation, you have to, and it has to go deeper than just 1 loss, because then you add in other teams that can get to that conversation, and Wisconsin has the same argument right now that Alabama has.
For me, I sat on College Game Day yesterday, and we were asked the same thing. This is before the championship games. And we talked about what-if scenarios. And I said if Ohio State was able to knock off Wisconsin, I think Ohio State would be more deserving and should be the team that should go over Alabama. Then I watched, as I'm calling, the Clemson game that was over really pretty quickly.
First quarter?
Second drive.
I had plenty of time to watch that game, and I watched all of it. And the more I watched it, and the more I thought about it throughout that game, the more I thought, I can't with a clear conscience say that Ohio State is one of the best 4 teams. And because of that, I think if I'm in that room and I'm a coach and I'm evaluating the teams and I go by the goal is to find the best 4, I would give Alabama the edge over Ohio State.
This is, I mean, you're trying to decide a championship. but best is nebulous because everybody believes the Big Ten's good, and it is really good.
It is.
But it is the only Power 5 conference without a non-conference win.